So briefly, like I mentioned right before the video turned on, is that I cannot speak for all the Sfaradim in the world, for all the ways the poskim look at, but in our Bet Midrash, we're going to discuss now the Rambam and the Arizal and the way we look at the writings of the Rambam and the Arizal. I think it's important to be clear that there is a number of different Sephardic communities, and I don't intend to. Well, I am going to oversimplify it. Something a little more complicated. You have the Sfaradim of the East and the Sfaradim of the West. You have the Sfaradim who are actually Spanish and the Sfaradim who have nothing to do with Spain. These groups used to all go under different titles, but today we kind of lump everybody under Sephardim, or in more modern terms, Edot HaMizrach, the nations of the East. But some Sephardim in the Mizrach never met each other. For example, most of you might be familiar thinking Sephardim are as Jews who come from Arab lands. I hear this all the time. Whereas Sfarad is a Spanish country, and the proper understanding of Sfaradim, before Sfaradim went to Arab lands, they were European Jews. Yes, Spanish European, but from that part of Europe. In fact, if you ever walk into a Spanish Portuguese synagogue, it might be very reminiscent to you of an Ashkenazi service. Because though there are tunes that overlap between the communities, the style and the feeling and the overall tune that goes on in the Beit Knesset is Sephardic, but not Middle Eastern Sephardic like you might think Sephardic. And therefore it's really not correct how we lump together many groups. It would be like considering all Hasidim to be Chabad or Breslev, or saying that all Ashkenazim are Breslev.
Yeah.
Just because Breslev is a subcategory of Jews who live in Ashkenaz. It's a very incorrect statement. We use these words a lot. Essentially the way when I use the word Sephardic, I'm referring to all those who subscribe to the philosophy and the way of life and the rulings of the Chachamim who sat in Spain. I don't care where they lived. But there's a certain ideology of the Rambam, the Shulchan Aruch, and that line that we follow, that regardless of where Sfaradim live, they follow those rulings. You're going to hear in the next verses the Ma'arav, the West, or the East, or Israel, or outside of Israel, or Morocco, or all these are subcategories of Sfaradim, and it's important to know that there's a difference between all of them. But let's start somewhere. See on page Kufay, it says Harambam Zatzan. Yeah?
Yeah.
Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch Miusad is based on Pi HaRambam. It's based on the Rambam. Let's tell the truth. Maran has some kind of technical thought that he follows, where he looks at the halachot of the Rambam, the Rif, and the Rosh. And he chooses 2 out of 3, or majority out of, that's how he rules halakha. But at the end of the day, Maran is basing himself mostly off of the Rambam. Those who are diehard Rambamists don't like this, because there are numerous times where Maran doesn't rule in accordance with the Rambam. But for the most part, Maran is following the Rambam. Kadav Maran b'sifro, Maran writes in his own book, Avkat Rochel. Have you heard of his book, Avkat Rochel? This is Maran's questions and answers, his responsa. He writes, HaRambam hu gdol ha-poskim. The Rambam is the greatest of the poskim. V'chol kilot Eretz Yisrael, v'ha'aravistan, v'ha'ma'arav. And all of the poskim of the land of Israel, and the Arab stan. I don't actually know legally which countries fit under that jurisdiction. V'ha'ma'arav, and what's Ma'arav?
East?
Mizrach is east. Ma'arav is west.
Oh yeah, west.
And the Ma'arav noagim al piv, they accept they follow his mouth. The kiblu alehem the Rabban, and they accepted the Rambam upon themselves as their rabbi. So Maran himself writes in his Shelot v'Tshuvot that the Rambam he's the posek. Maran writes that.
Okay. That he is the posek.
Yes. V'chatav, remember I told you that every rule has an exception, except for this rule? Maran is clearly saying that everybody follows the Rambam, but he himself doesn't always follow the Rambam.
Is he speaking as a generalization or as a...
Everything is going to end up being a generalization. V'katav Knesset HaGedolah. The Knesset HaGedolah writes, Yadua hadavar. It is well known, umfusam, and it's famous. Shechibur Shulchan Aruch, that the work Shulchan Aruch, kulom miusad al pidat Rambam, is pretty much exclusively built on the opinions of the Rambam. Kihu Mara De'atra Shel Eretz Yisrael, because he is the master of the territories of the land of Israel, V'atzot HaMa'arav, and the lands of the west. What does Mara De'atra mean? Master of the place. What does that mean?
Like
He's
the authority.
The chief rabbi, like
Yeah, he's the authority. I mean, we follow everything he says. One who doesn't is going to be in contempt of the master of that place. ולכן סתם בשולחן ערוך, כסברת הרמב"ם, Shulchan Aruch is, whenever he's speaking plainly, he's ruling like the Rambam. שרוב ארצות המערב נוהגים כמותו, because the majority of the western lands rule in accordance with the Rambam. עד כאן, that's the end of his sentence. It's obvious to you that here we rule like Maran always, or most of the time I have to say. And the Rambam is looked at secondary to Maran. And I don't mean that in a negative way to the Rambam, but the book that is studied here, we do it every night, is Shulchan Aruch. And I mentioned before that it's a difficult thing when Maran and the Rambam contradict each other. What do you do then? Right, it's a different story. But here I wish to talk about a different rule. There's an interesting discussion among the Sfaradim. Hora'at, you see page Kuf Vav, Mem Aleph, the top of the page. Page Kuf Vav. The top right, it says Kuf Vav.
Keeps changing.
you can freeze it. So it doesn't do
How?
it.
There, I froze it, I think. Well, how do you freeze?
Just stick it outside.
Hora'at halacha ke'arambam, ruling the law like the Rambam. B'makom shemaran lo gila et da'ato, anywhere where Maran does not rule the halacha, he doesn't say his opinion in the halacha. Anachnu asfaradim, we the Sfaradim, poskim umorim halacha kehorat harambam bisfarav. We follow halacha like the Rambam wherever Maran does not give us a clear opinion. Uloron elech b'chol asher yiroen, in his way we will walk in whatever he tells us, and then obviously brackets, there's an exception to that rule, we follow the Rambam whatever he tells us. Milvad minhagim shenagu lo kehorato, except for certain customs that we ruled not in accordance with the Rambam. For whatever reason that may be. Here is an important thing. Maran doesn't write about everything in halakha. There are entire areas of halakha Maran doesn't deal with. For example, anything to do with the Beit HaMikdash, or the future, or the Mashiach, or anything like that, Maran doesn't rule. He only rules for us in this place, in this time, now. And because of that, everywhere where Maran doesn't rule, we go according to the Rambam. When I was deciding to put Kehillat on my clothing, on my tzitzit, there's 8 or 9 different ways to do Kehillat. And one of the questions is, when the Torah says, on the corner of your clothing, you have to have 1 string of blue. What does it mean, 1 string of blue? What's my question?
Well, does it go all the way through, or does it go
Okay, how many
halfway?
strings are in each corner?
Well, there's
In a
4
loop,
that
there's
come
a-
through
There's
for
4 that are
8
looped, and
ends.
therefore it makes 8.
8 ends.
Correct? So when it says one of those should be blue, does it mean one whole one should be blue? Or half of one should be blue? Meaning, is it 1 out of 4, which would be 2 out of 8?
Right.
Or is it 1 out of 8, which is really half of 1?
I think it's half.
So Rambam rules it's 1 out of 8. So you dye it halfway and then you stop. Other poskim say the whole way. I didn't know what to do because Maran doesn't talk about Kehillat, because Maran doesn't deal with Kehillat. The Rambam says, the understanding is that tzitzit is on the corner. On the corner there's 1 thread of blue. So on the corner it's already 8. 1 of those threads should be blue. And I was really debating this for a while because I wanted to do Kehillat. The Kehillat is really difficult. This was when I lived in Yerushalayim. I was thinking, and then one night I downloaded an app on my phone. Forgive me for sharing this story. The app on my phone that it was called Torat Emet, and it had in it all kinds of Jewish books. One of them was like a Kabbalah section. I said, let's click on the Kabbalah section. You click one book, I don't understand what he's talking about. Next book, I don't understand. One book said, it clicked Rav Chaim Vital, the laws of tzitzit according to the Arizal. And in there, the Arizal says you have to have 1 out of 8. I said, what are the chances that the Rambam and the Arizal are going to agree with each other? And I said, if the Rambam and the Arizal agreed, that's what I'm going to do also. And I've had some moments.
And Moran doesn't agree.
Maran doesn't say,
Doesn't
he doesn't
talk
speak
about
about Kehillat. So essentially we do this a lot. Anytime when Maran doesn't speak about a certain detail, but the Rambam does, we go by in the Rambam. I will tell you that one who is familiar with the writings of the Rambam is much easier to study than Maran. More organized, much more clear. Also, there's English for the whole Rambam, which we don't have Shulchan Aruch. If one knows the Rambam, it doesn't have to be afraid. Rambam is obviously great enough to follow. It's easy to know the few places where Maran and the Rambam don't agree. Classic example of where we don't follow the Rambam. How do you make meat kosher? You slaughter it, and then what do?
Salt
Or drain the
Before
blood.
you salt
it,
it,
drain it.
you drain it. The next,
You check the lungs.
you wash it.
Oh,
Oh yeah, okay, you check lungs.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the blood though, the blood. And then you salt it,
Salt it. Take the blood.
and then
Slaughter, drain, wash,
salt.
Fat
Then you
butter.
wash off all that salt from the meat because that
Oh, yeah.
contains the blood.
Remove the salt.
And then what do we do today?
Let the butcher do it.
We cook that meat. That's why it says in the package sometimes soaked and salted. It says that. Yeah.
Yeah, pre-done.
Today nobody goes to the store and salts or anything. That's not a thing that's done.
No.
According to the Rambam, there has to be one more step called chalita. Have you heard of chalita before?
No.
So
No,
I don't think anyone's ever seen chalita. It could be by the way that where Chal's parents lived, people still do it. But I don't know that anyone really does. Chalita is after the meat. You see, after you salt the meat, there's still blood inside of the meat.
Right.
That blood is not a problem unless that blood comes out of the meat and goes back into the meat.
Goes out and back. Do you squeeze it or something when you're preparing it?
So you salt it to the best of your ability. There's like you salt it for an hour. Different opinions how long you salt it. According to the Rambam, what you do with the meat is you take it after you salt it and wash it, and you throw it in a boiling hot pot of water. Chalita. It's momentarily. You sear it almost with water. I don't know an English word better than searing. Imagine that concept. And it locks in. The meat is not cooked. You can grill it or do whatever you want after that. But it locks in the blood on the inside so that it stays inside the meat. According to the Rambam, if you don't do this to the meat is not kosher.
It's like they do that with metals. They call it annealing.
Annealing?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Chalita, is that the word for frying? Or some type of...
Chavita is a Friday.
Chavita.
Very good. So this is chalita with the lamed. Maran rules not against the Rambam in this, that we don't do that. And the Yemenite community is one of the few that I'm familiar with that actually was accustomed to follow the Rambam in this. Big debate whether once they came to Israel, it's okay for them to buy the regular meat or they should continue with the custom of chalita. Obviously, whichever custom you have a leaning towards will rule. But for them, that's a classic case where Sfaradim and rule like Maran, not like the Rambam. Something else I can think about, if I'm not mistaken, I'm doing the wrong thing. If I'm not mistaken, the Rambam rules that glass is not part of it like Maran does. If I'm not mistaken. Could be that I am, but if I'm not mistaken. And therefore...
Or was glass different in the Rambam's?
Right, so again, it's a question of reality or is it a question of understanding? The bottom line is there's a few places, and we know where they are, where Maran rules not like the Rambam, and if you can be aware of that, already everything is taken care of. Next is the Arizal. Who is the Arizal?
Father of Kabbalah, so to speak.
Kind of yes and kind of no. Who is the Arizal? His name. Let's start with his name.
Ariel.
It's like urea.
Rabbi Yitzchak Luria Ashkenazi. Why was he called Ashkenazi?
Because he came from the Ashkenaz area.
Because he
and moved
came
to
from Ashkenaz,
Sephardic area.
but his family identified as Sephardic. There was once upon a time where you could do that. Today in the Jewish community, you only have the other option. You could come from a Sephardic background and identify as Ashkenazi, but you cannot do the other way around. You try doing the other way around and they'll kill you for it.
I'm still
If-
here.
Okay, but I'm sure you've gotten your fair share of comments over the years.
People know when to leave me alone.
Oh, okay. They know. Don't
Don't
mess with
mess with
Texas.
me. Yeah.
Don't mess with it. That's they
It's
know.
just that I'm very stubborn.
in this regard, the Arizal, if you go to Tzfat today, there's still two Arizal synagogues: Arizal Ashkenazi, Arizal Sephardi.
That's great.
They're right across from each other. The Arizal himself, from what is known to me, though his whole life he did things Sephardic, on the high holidays he would go pray with the Ashkenazi. Even though he made his own siddur and everything. On the high holidays he went to pray with the Ashkenazim. I heard once, I never saw it in a book. The reason he did this was he wished to show people that on high holidays you need what's called zechut avot. You need the merits of your forefathers. And he didn't want to completely be cut off from his lineage when he was on high holidays. And therefore he the rest of the year though he was with Sfaradim, on the high holidays he was with Ashkenazi.
What ethnic thing is Luria?
Luria.
It is a Russian.
There's a lot of Lurias. I don't know from what I
Russia,
thought
there's
there were
some
Polish Lurias also. In Russia there are definitely Lurias.
Russian, because
They're
I
famous
knew
scientists.
Luria is Russian.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
correct.
There's a famous scientist and a famous...
There's a famous Maharil, these are Luria, Marshal, Luria. Those are all distant family of the Arizal. Arizal means Ashkenazi Rabbi Yitzchak. It's Ari, lion. Yeah, they put it that way because it's lion. And then Zal means Zichron Livracha, blessed memory. Many rabbis you'll see write Ari HaChai, the living lion, not the dead lion. Why do you call him the dead lion? It's not nice. Or many will call him the Ari HaKadosh, the holy lion. Because they don't want to always talk about how he's dead. Okay, to each their own. The Arizal complicates things in a lot of different ways historically. The Arizal complicates the world of Kabbalah, he complicates the world of Halakha, and he complicates the world of Sfaradim. Because of the previous two. The Arizal is not the first Kabbalist who ever lived. He's not. He is the founder, though, of what some might dub Lurianic Kabbalah.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert in Kabbalah, nor can I tell you what this kind and that kind and the next kind.
Wasn't
But-
Avraham Avinu a Kabbalist in the sense of Sefer Yetzirah?
Depends who you're going to ask. Some people will tell you he didn't write every tzara. In terms of Kabbalah, there are a number of camps of Kabbalah. The Arizals being that which most contradicts with the world of the Rambam. One could argue, not me, I've heard arguments, that the Kabbalah that came before Lurianic Kabbalah, like that of Rabbi Abulafia, is what they would like to dub prophetic Kabbalah. This is a word for it. The Rambam believes in prophecy. He believes in the connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The system of Kabbalah, which is espoused by the Zohar, by the Arizal, Sfirot, and breaking Hashem into pieces and things like that, is very foreign to the world of classical Rambam Judaism from before. And some would like to say that it's a new branch already on its own.
But is Maaseh Merkavah considered by anyone to be Kabbalah?
Yeah, probably.
But we just don't know what was actually in the Maaseh Merkavah?
Right, these are things that I don't dabble in every day.
But
Because
there are
of-
people talk about it. Because I know
Absolutely.
Rabbi Abulafia wrote a whole Kabbalist commentary on this more in the Vrachim.
The Arizal essentially is the one who mainstreams Kabbalah, pushes it very hard. I mean, Tzfat was like Kabbalah center of the world. The Arizal pushes a lot of the Kabbalah that you've heard of, or you've known of, is all stemmed in the Zohar and the Arizal's Kabbalah. What is my stance on the Zohar? It's too dangerous to share on camera. But I'll tell you there are a few camps when it comes to Zohar. The two extremes. Rabbi Ashlag says that, I'll start with, Rabbi Ashlag said the Zohar is such a perfect work that if you would tell me Moshe Rabbeinu gave it to the Jewish people on Mount Sinai, word for word, I would believe you. Rabbi Kapach in Yemen, Kafich, says the Zohar is a book of paganism, and there's nothing more foreign to the Jewish people than this book. And those who follow this book are non-believers in Hashem.
Slight difference of opinion.
Slight difference of opinion.
Yeah. Like,
There are two middle grounds, but I'll quote it as one. Rav Yosef Masas wrote it the best, in which he said, there are parts of the Zohar which we would like to believe Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai wrote. But there's much of the Zohar which it is obvious to anybody with eyes in their head that is a mistake, that has been written by people after Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. And when it comes to Zohar, he says it's a book that's mishubash. It has its problems on a textual level. It answers a lot of Rav Kapach's critiques on the Zohar. Like, why is the Aramaic of the Zohar not at all the same Aramaic as the time and period in which Rav Shimon Bar Yochai lived in? Or why are there stories in the Zohar about rabbis that were not alive in the times of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, or that lived after Rav Shimon Bar Yochai? Why are there verses in the Zohar that are quoted one way, and when you look in the Tanakh, that's not how they're written? I mean, the one who authored the Zohar misquoted the Tanakh, or gave the wrong chapter and verse of a verse in the Tanakh, or just quoted a verse that's not even in our Tanakh. There's a lot of problems with the Zohar. And the middle ground of Rabbi Yosef Masas is where I like to hang out most of the time. Practically, what does it mean? Practically means like what Rabbi Shalom Masas writes, the cousin of Rabbi Yosef. He says that Divrei Kabbalah Lo ne'emru ela lematzni'ehen bilvad. He writes a few times in his different letters, Shemesh U'Magen, Tvot Shemesh, that the words of Kabbalah were given only to those who have been entrusted with its secrets. Those who are private, tzanua, lematzni'ehen, to those who are tzanua with Kabbalah. Meaning, the standard custom, not like what they want to tell you today, you know, Baba Sali, Abu Khatsera, Pintos, all the names that exist in the Sephardic Moroccan community, put it on the side. In Morocco, the rule was the Moroccans were not involved in Kabbalah. Listen very carefully. The Moroccans were not involved in Kabbalah. It'll make Moroccans very mad if you tell them this. The rabbis of the Moroccans were not involved in Kabbalah. Their attitude was, when it comes to Bedin, when it comes to Halakha, when it comes to writing books, there is only Halakha. If you're a Kabbalist, and for whatever reason, you are accustomed to do things differently, or you rule on things differently, or you believe about things differently, wonderful. In your little Kabbalistic corner of Morocco, you're able to do that. But don't bother the people with these things. Because we have an obligation to follow halakha the way halakha is known. That's pretty much the attitude that we have as well. And that is, whether you want to believe about Kabbalah or not, it doesn't make a difference, because in our Bet Midrash, we try not to be affected by Kabbalah. Not in a negative way, not in a positive way, just we're dealing with halakha. We're dealing with halakha, we're dealing with halakha, we're dealing with the Chumash, we're dealing with the Chumash, we're dealing with the Tanakh, we deal with the Tanakh. If you're a Kabbalist, that's your prerogative. I'm not going to call you an idolater, I'm also not going to call you Moshe Rabbeinu. I'm not in this conversation.
Is the problem that...
And by the way, I'm letting you know today that obviously was not my stance in my whole life, forever. Things change, yes.
Is the problem that there isn't a line of transmission the same way like with the Talmud? Because there you, like the Rambam begins his mission, or it was passed down from this
The
to
Kabbalists
this.
will argue that there was a line of transmission. The argument against the Mekubalim is, then why is there so much in your Kabbalistic teachings that are foreign to the revealed, if I'm going to use that word, revealed teachings of the Torah until today? Why the contradictions? In fact, one of the rabbis against the Zohar wrote in his work, he said, we always hate the Christians for breaking God up into 3 parts. Why are we so calm about the Kabbalists who divided God into 10 parts? Now, those who understand Kabbalah, it's not the parts, we're not dividing, it's a sphirot, it's a different thing. But to the untrained ear, one who did not dabble in this field, it sounds like you're saying God is made up of 10 different pieces. You want to explain that away? The Christians also know how to explain away their Trinity. And there, things start to get murky and problematic. And I'm not here at all to stick my head in this war, it's over me. The question is, not what do we do with Kabbalah, what do we do with the writings of the Arizal? Rabbi Yitzchak Luria Ashkenazi was not just a Kabbalist, he also was a Posek. He was a halachic figure. And what do we do about the things that he writes that directly affect halakha? Do we treat them as words of Kabbalah? Or do we treat them as words of halakha that were written by a Kabbalist? Obviously here you're going to have differences of opinions depending on how people think about Kabbalah. Tomorrow we're going to talk about this, but I want to give perhaps an example of what I'm speaking about the Arizal and halakha. Have you ever seen Hasidic tzitzit before?
Seen it.
The
You mean
Ravad,
like
the
the
look
bad?
and the faded Kehillat from Ravad.
You're talking about the Breslov one?
No, not about the string.
Special knots.
The Hasidic talitot look like this. I mean, they have a tzitzit in the corner like everybody else does. In terms of tzitzit, though, often they have two holes here. Have you seen that before?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the Chabad one that has 7 strings here and 1 string in that hole. That's not what I'm talking about. Rather, the tzitzit, it has 2 holes, and the tzitzit come out on the corner out of only 2 holes. I mean, the tzitzit does not wrap around the cloth. It's only in front of the cloth. Dan, I'm sure you've seen this before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like in the shape of a tzere, like a colon, 2 dots, and the strings come out only from here. Like imagine that it didn't go around the corner; it comes out like this. Why do they do this? Because of the Arizal. The Arizal tzitzit looked like that. He had 2 holes, and the tzitzit came out of here. And therefore, the Hasidim who are trying to be Kabbalists, they write that one should wear their tzitzit, like the Arizal wears tzitzit. So why don't the Kabbalistic Sfaradim do the same thing? Because we also, the Sephardic Kabbalists also follow the
Rav Chaim
Arizal.
Vital, huh?
Rav Chaim Vital says that this is not something that has to do with Kabbalah. Rather, this is a leftover custom that my rabbi had from when he was Ashkenazi.
Oh.
Meaning, these were his tzitzit when he was Ashkenazi. This is how they tied it in his family. He just kept doing like that.
That's great.
But that Kabbalistically, he instructed his students dafka not to do it like that. And not just Rav Chaim Vital says that. Rav Shlomo Vital, I think that's his name. He's the son of Chaim Vital. He reinforces that his father was the prime disciple of the Arizal, wore tzitzit not like the Arizal wore tzitzit, at the instruction of the Arizal. And therefore, oftentimes, when I hear things, oh, we do this because it's Kabbalah, very quickly, I have a very quick way to know if something is Kabbalah or not. When I find Hasidim do things according to Kabbalah, but the Ben Ish Chai doesn't do it, then something tells me, hey, red light, hold on. How could those who are actually Sephardic Kabbalists not do something that Sephardic Kabbalah would say, but some rabbi in Poland does it? It can be. Something has to happen here. Then you do a little bit of research and you find out. When it comes to the writings of the Arizal carries weight in the Sephardic community. A lot of the Siddur and the Tfilot and things that happen come from the Arizal. And therefore, tomorrow we're going to discuss what do we do when the Arizal says something? What do we do when the Arizal says something that argues with Maran? What do we do when the Arizal says to make a blessing and everybody argues with the Arizal?
There's still the point. I thought the Sfardim held by Rav Chaim Vital differently than the Arizal.
Haynuach, these are the same. Rav Chaim Vital is to the Arizal, Havdil what Yehoshua is to Moshe Rabbeinu. He is the mouthpiece. We're not going to make a differentiation between the Arizal and Rav Chaim Vital.
Because there's some customs that are different that come, supposedly what I was taught was from Rav Chaim Vital, that he observed the Arizal doing something, but then for Sephardim he interpreted it a certain way.
I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a Kabbalist to be able to...
I'm just trying to get the...
From what I understand, the way we look at the Arizal, when we say Arizal, normally we're talking about the books Rav Chaim Vital wrote anyways, because Rav Chaim Vital is the one who authored those works. We look at Rav Chaim Vital and the Arizal like they were the same person.
Okay.
Even though they weren't. And Rav Chaim Vital, you know how many years he studied from the Arizal?
It couldn't have been long because he...
Arizal passed away very young. I believe he studied about 2 years from the Arizal. And in those 2 years he received... There's a Hasidic rabbi like that. His name was Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin. Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen was a mitnaged. He was from the opponents of Hasidut. Then he became a student... right now I don't remember all the dynasties. He became a student of one of the Hasidic rabbis, and already within 8 or 9 months of becoming a Hasid, he already almost became his own rebbe and started writing Hasidut. I mean, it took him 8 months to grasp everything he needed to know to be able to continue. There are some people, exceptional people in the world like that. They didn't have to spend. Some people spend years and years and years and years, and some people spend a few times and they get it. Tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem.